Got some breaking news that an appeals court is now allowing Trump to continue having control of the California National Guard.
I want to make this clear. The National Guard will come back under my authority by noon tomorrow. The National Guard will be redeployed to what they were doing before Donald Trump commandeered them. The National Guard will go back to border security, working on counter-drug enforcement and fentanyl enforcement, which they were taken off by Donald Trump. The National Guard will go back to working on what we refer to as the rattlesnake teams, doing vegetation and forest management, which Donald Trump took them off in preparation for wildfire season. The National Guard, men and women, will go back to their day jobs, which include law enforcement, that he took them off the job.
Several days later.
Breaking news. Let's get some information from Politico's Kyle Cheney. He says a federal appeals court has indefinitely blocked Judge Breyer's order to put Gavin Newsom back in control of the National Guard. A three-judge panel, which included two Trump and one Biden appointee, was unanimous, according to Politico.
Analyst Andrew Weissman, New York Times reporter and MSNBC contributor Jeremy Peters, and former U.S. Army captain and Iraq War veteran Allison Jaslow. Andrew, the arguments yesterday, we played a little bit of them here on this show, and in the initial argument from the government, it did appear that the judges were skeptical of the argument that the Trump administration was making, that he could just deploy the National Guard whenever he saw fit without a reason. Then a bit later, when California got up to argue their side of this, the judges were also pretty skeptical. And so much so, it seems that they're leaning toward allowing Donald Trump to have this power. What will that mean for the expansion of presidential powers?
So the government took a maximalist view of the executive's power, and they argued that the court simply has no basis to review anything they do in terms of the president calling up and federalizing the National Guard. One of the judges who was appointed by Donald Trump asked the question, which was a good one, which was, but are you saying if there was no violence at all in Los Angeles, or are you saying if there was no violence anywhere in the country, that the president could simply say that he's calling up the National Guard because he thinks that there's a concern about a rebellion either in Los Angeles or, frankly, anywhere in the country? That was the question that that judge put to the government, and they said that the court has no place whatsoever to judge that it is solely within the executive's power, the president's power, and they're relying on an 1827 Supreme Court case, which does, largely support that position, the sort of maximalist view. And so you have the Trump administration clearly banking on the fact that the Ninth Circuit has to follow even a very, very old Supreme Court case. So that, I think, is why you're seeing the Supreme Court as the court that's ultimately going to have to decide this. And the Ninth Circuit, I think, may feel like its sort of hands are tied by that 1827 precedent.
If I was in California's legal position here, I would tell the governor, you don't want to appeal this. You don't want to bring this up to the Supreme Court. Yes, you have the option to ask them to take it. That's your sort of last best chance here. But I think you're going to lose, California. I think if you look at this opinion, it was a 3-0 unanimous opinion from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. You had two Trump appointees and a Biden appointee on that court. I don't see any way any of the 6 conservatives on the Supreme Court say, sure, a trial-level district judge can overrule the president on this issue just because he disagrees. I even think some of the liberals might join with the conservatives on this, as we saw with the Biden appointee. So it's an interesting strategic decision. If they do bring it up to the Supreme Court, California, and if the Supreme Court rules again in favor of the Trump administration, then that's going to be nationwide binding, an even bigger loss for California.